Story 1. Am I the a-hole for confronting my cousin about stealing my dress the night before her wedding? I, 27 female, am getting married later this year and announced a tentative date a while ago. Seemingly out of nowhere, my cousin, 28 female, decided to get married exactly 1 week before I was planning to. I've been trying on wedding dresses for the past couple of months. My cousin's mother asked to see some of the dresses I had tried on, so my mother sent her a video of one of our final pics. I didn't think much of it as I wanted my extended family to feel included. A few weeks pass, and I get a call from the boutique I had paid a deposit for my dress at. They inform me that my cousin and her mother had come to their store with the video of me and my dress and asked to get something exactly like it. One of their sales associates sold them the exact dress in a cream color instead of white, which was my dress's color. The store owner was very apologetic and offered a refund since she realized 2 girls from the same family can't wear the same dress. I'll likely have a lot of the same guests at my wedding. I was in disbelief and was hoping it was a terrible mix-up. I immediately messaged my cousin and casually asked to see the dress she purchased. For weeks, she created stories about either not finding a dress or having it altered so she couldn't show me. Finally, the night before her wedding, she invited my mom and I over for some last-minute help. Again, we asked to see her dress. She finally caved in and brought it out. Of course, it was the exact same dress. I was extremely hurt and asked why she would go out of her way to steal my wedding dress, knowing full well her wedding is before mine, which means everyone would see it on her before me. I said if she had spoken to me beforehand, I might have chosen to let her have the dress, but she went behind my back and chose to lie about it repeatedly. Things got heated, and I ended up leaving. I'm not sure if I even want to go to her wedding tomorrow after the stunt she and her mother pulled. Everyone in my family thinks I overreacted and should have kept my mouth shut until after her wedding instead of creating animosity the night before her big day. Am I the a-hole? Hopping on to answer a few frequently asked questions. I accepted the refund and will be wearing a different, much more fabulous dress to the wedding. My original post mentioned that the wedding date I announced was tentative. When my cousin went ahead and booked her wedding exactly a week before mine, I changed my date because it would be far too inconvenient for our family and friends to arrange clothes, transportation, hair and makeup, etc. back to back. Some commenters think I should have confronted my cousin the second I found out about her stealing my dress. I did, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt by having a conversation first. She dodged showing me her dress for weeks, but by that point, I had already returned my dress. Only was going to say something after I confirmed she did, in fact, steal my dress. I didn't want to make a scene if it turned out she didn't actually copy me. To the commenter saying, "It's just a dress?" My cousin will likely be sending her wedding photos to everyone in our extended family. At least 50% of my guests will be the same as hers, so they definitely would have noticed if we wore the same dress, and I would look like an imitator. As much as I'd love to show up wearing the same dress to her wedding, I would definitely be exacerbating the whole ordeal. I should have known that after changing my wedding date to accommodate my cousin, she would have assumed I would accommodate all her other BS too. I didn't mention this in the original post as I wanted unbiased answers, but my cousin and her mom have copied me my whole life. Whether it's buying similar clothes, copying my style, etc., they never compliment me, yet copy everything I do. I wasn't the one who sent them the video of my dress. My mom did. She assumed there was no way they would ever copy my dress. The cousin and her mom are from my dad's side of the family. I'm assuming that's why my mom isn't making as big a deal as she should. I think if you knew all of this about the dress and about them copying you, and you knew all of it, if you wanted to help out just before the wedding and notice the dress, I think you would have just had more fun just kind of stringing it along, just hinting about seeing the dress and seeing how much help you could get away with or how long you could stay there while she avoided bringing the dress out. Not quite an a-hole. If you're confronting it with a calm and level head, that's okay. I think don't just blow up at her. If you already had a better dress for this wedding, I would say probably maybe just let it go at that. So, and if you said it was a more fabulous dress, then you're doing good. I think you should let her know that her behavior is bad and untolerated, of course, but just blowing up at her probably isn't the way to go. Story 2. Not my revenge, but my professors against cheaters. I took the final for an engineering class this morning. Usually, 1 or 2 people will go to the bathroom during class. However, for totally unknown reasons, about half the class needed to use the restroom during the exam. Obviously, a vast majority of them were looking up the answers on their phones. This irritated me, but I just stayed focused and barely finished since it was a hard exam. I remembered that there was one particular problem that was only barely related to the stuff we went over in class, where Part A was fairly easy, but I had no idea how to do Part B. I didn't fret over it too much since that was part of only 5 points out of 100. While our professor, who was on the older side and I would have thought was somewhat ignorant of technology, sent us an email just now explaining his diabolical plan to catch cheaters. Many of the students in the class use Chegg, a website that has answers to lots of homework questions if you're not familiar. To be fair, I have an account too, though I only used it for studying and checking homework solutions. Anyway, he explained that he was tired of people going to the bathroom and looking up answers on their phones, so he made the question I mentioned earlier as a trap. He purposely made Part B impossible to solve, and about a month before the final, he got a teacher's assistant with a Chegg account to ask that exact question, which was distinctly worded to be unique. He then created his own Chegg account and answered the question with a hogwash solution that seems right at first glance, but is actually fundamentally flawed and very unlikely that someone would make the same assumptions and mistakes independently. He said that out of 99 exams, 14 of them fell for the trap, and that everyone who had his wrong solution on their exam was given a 0 and reported to the university for violating the academic honor pledge they signed on the front. He also sent an email to all the other professors in our department giving them the list of cheaters. Forgot to mention, he gave full credit on Part B of the question to everyone else. And now, 5 months after this, I come back. I'm glad this post is getting attention, and I'm once again receiving messages from people wanting to get in touch with the professor or students from the class. So now that this story has run its initial course, I'll burst everyone's bubble by admitting that I mostly made this story up. It's based on a real incident that happened in my department a couple of years ago, but I wasn't in the class personally. I only heard about it third hand from someone I didn't know that well. So while the general plot and end result of the story is true, I changed some details to keep the professor in school anonymous and took creative liberty in writing it from a first-person viewpoint. Unfortunately, the part about my department letting students go to the bathroom during exams with their phones was true, and is still true to this day. And to my knowledge, the incident this is based on is the only time that a professor actually took a stand against this awful policy. So yeah, I don't know the professor personally since the class he taught is not part of my program's curriculum. So I wouldn't put anyone in touch with him or anyone else who knows about the real incident to expose his identity. Before anyone reports this for being fake, I will once again stress that while I changed the details, the actual events played out in a similar way, and the real professor did in fact get his revenge on the cheaters. It's kind of real, but I kind of feel ripped off, don't you? It is a genius solution, infiltrating the source of the cheater's fountain of A's, if you will, the fountain of answers or something. But yeah, that's very brilliant, very devious, and good on him for learning about technology and learning about what students use these days to try and get in touch with them. Cool. Story 3. Today I fracked up by pretending to know the girl who thought she knew me. I, 21 male, was waiting for my order at the local coffee shop. Also in the store waiting for orders was a girl who looked around my age and a guy who seemed to be a bit older, 35 to 45. I noticed that the guy was talking the girl's ear off and she didn't seem very interested in the conversation. Next thing I notice, she's approaching me saying, "Brian?" My name isn't Brian, but before I could correct her, I remember reading something online that said, if a girl ever pretends to know you, play along. She might be in trouble. So I played along and started having a friendly chat with her as if I knew her. Well, not too long into the conversation, she looks at me and goes, "Wait, you're not Brian." To which I respond, I know, I thought we were doing a thing. Then a bit louder and annoyed, she says, "Why would you pretend to be someone I know?" Now the guy she was with before comes over and asks if everything's all right. Knowing I had fracked up, I just told them honestly what I was doing. Turns out he was her boyfriend and he was talking about fantasy football. That's why she was so disinterested. She found it funny and thanked me even though I read the situation wrong. He was kind of offended, but understood. I've never been more embarrassed. Well, I'm glad that everybody understood what was going on, and I hope this doesn't derail this strategy from being implemented by people. I would really play along if I had the mental fortitude to pick up on the subject. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it was just a misunderstanding and that this person was honest. I mean, he just said, "This is what I was doing. I thought you were in trouble. This is why I was doing it." And then everybody understood. So cool that everyone was able to get along. Story 4. Today I fracked up by misinterpreting the CEO's arm gesture in a job interview, and then locking arms with him as if we were best friends forever. Obligatory, this happened yesterday. The memory still makes me cringe and cry. I had a job interview with a CEO in person, despite COVID. I was super nervous as usual, maybe even more than usual because I really wanted this job. I tried to calm myself down, but by the time the interviewer showed up, I could literally feel my heartbeat in my throat. He, 50-ish male, walked down the stairs towards me in his nice suit, but stopped halfway down. I figured this interview would take place upstairs, so I go up to meet him. And as I'm walking up the stairs towards him, he puts his arm up and his elbow out. And my brain just sort of went, "Error." I suppose it could have only meant two things. It could have meant A, "Please take my arm, milady, so I can escort you to the room as if we're strolling down the promenade together." Or B, "Please give me an elbow bump since we can't shake hands." Which is really not an uncommon gesture at all in the Netherlands. So what did I do? Yes, I went with option A, and I eagerly locked arms with this strange man that I never met before in my life, as if saying, "Yes, good sir, let's go for that stroll." And then we just stood there, arm in arm, halfway up the stairs, sheepishly staring at each other, and I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. I just didn't know what to do next, and I don't think he'd fully understood what happened, so neither of us moved. When he'd finally gathered his senses, he'd said, "I meant to give you an elbow bump," after which I quickly put as much distance between us as I could and mumbled, Right, yes, that makes much more sense." Because it did, let's face it. And then we had an interview. So did you get the job? I want to know this. Maybe, I don't know if explaining would have made the situation any better. And maybe, I don't know if explaining that you're nervous would have won you any points in the interview. But man, this is what happens when you sort of overthink things, right? You just end up making these really interesting situations. I've done it before, and I'm so sorry you had to do it. But did you get the job? That's what we want to know. Story 5. Today I fracked up by ruining a joke my wife has been saving for years. Tomorrow, I'll be turning 32. As we were waking up this morning, she asked me if I was excited for the plans we'd made for my birthday. I responded that it was going to be tough to do everything in half a minute, but I was looking forward to it nonetheless. She looked at me, blank-faced for a couple of seconds, and I thought she was just trying to make sense of what I had said. Instead, she suddenly smacks my chest and yells at me that I ruined a joke she's been holding on to for years. I didn't believe her until she showed me an email from 2016 that she had sent to herself to remind her to set a calendar event so she wouldn't forget. It took her 10 minutes before she was calm enough to talk to me again. Unfortunately for her, I've known and used the 30-second birthday joke for years. Oh man, that's awful. That is completely awful. I wonder if she had ever thought of making any backup plans or any retort if this person had said it first. And if he'd used it for years, wouldn't she have overheard it at some point before? It kind of sucks, and I wonder how she felt throughout the rest of the day. If when they did have plans, if she was kind of mopey about it or if she took it in stride later. I kind of think this needs a follow-up.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.